for everybody who's showing up on Facebook, this is our Narcissism Expert Roundtable. I am Rita Hickman. I'm a body-mind expert and shiatsu massage therapist. And my specialty is helping women who are in toxic relationships or narcissistic relationships get strong enough and smart enough and clear enough and find their voice and get their energy back so that they can do the things they want to do. You know, there's all this great advice out there. Everybody says, well, you should just set boundaries. You should just, do this. You should. But if you're exhausted, there's no, too bad, or you're scared or insecure, you don't have support. So that's what I do. I help women go through this. So if you're joining us and you're seeing us on Facebook or the recording, and we're thrilled you're here. And I gathered these beautiful women healers to be on this roundtable tonight. And we've got experience in narcissism in different ways, from our family, from friends, from romances, from coworkers. We cover the gamut. And we're also all different specialties, healing specialties. And part of the reason we got into healing was because of the narcissists in our life. That's part of the reason that, we're like, we have to figure this out. We have to heal ourselves. We have to find out how all of this works. And it launched us into becoming healers. And we all went in different directions. We went in the directions of like emotional freedom technique. We went into the directions of, oh, I've got one more person. Hang on, we have to add Jane. Jane should be coming on in a second. Excellent. Jane will be here too. So we're going to start with a few introductions. So I'm going to start with Shona, since she's right there. Hi, Shona.
Hi,
Shona, are you?
Hello.
There you are. Hi.
Can you see
Shona, I can see you. Hopefully you're showing up the live stream. That would be awesome. And so Shona is a specialist in emotional freedom technique, which is, the thing when everybody talks about tapping, that's what they're talking about. And one of the reasons I love EFT is because it works with the meridians of Asian medicine. It's super exciting. So Shona not only does EFT, but she coaches people in how to empower themselves and get through these challenges using EFT. So what do you have to share with us tonight, Shona?
Oh my God, it's so good to be here with you. So much to share, and I thank you for that beautiful introduction. I love EFT as a tool because it is free, it's accessible, anyone can learn it, it's easy to use, and anyone can learn how to use it. And you can use it anywhere. So it's great to be here. As Rita was saying, I'm Shona Sharma, and I help high-achieving women who struggle with overwhelm, fatigue, loss of confidence, self-doubt, and very often they have really rough inner critics. And I help show these women how to reclaim their sense of peace, joy, security, safety, power, and confidence. And as we all know, when we're working with anyone who's on any range of spectrum of whether that's personality or someone who has a mental health issue, it's not like people come with labels or flags to warn us. Very often, if we've never experienced this before, we've never experienced abuse or trauma, it really catches us, it can catch people off guard. So I'm really glad to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion tonight. But what I'm going to be sharing is some very practical tips and tools as we get going with people and answer some questions about how do we, if we're caught off guard, how do we deal with that? Something comes at us and it's out of left field, which I'm sure has happened to every one of us. How do we deal with that in a very practical way? And what can we look out for if we know, so that we don't have to have this experience of, oh my gosh, I'm like a deer in headlights and I have no idea what to say and how to respond. So I'm going to be sharing that with our group tonight.
Perfect. Thank you, Shona. Okay, next in line is Tara. Tara, let's make sure you are unmuted. There you go. All right. Are you unmuted? Yeah, not yet. All right, perfect. So Tara is my favorite psychic who's out of Australia. She's so super cool. She does a live stream on Facebook called Daya Enlightened. Did I pronounce it right?
Daya Enlightens. Yeah.
Oh, Daya, and great.
Yeah.
And so you've seen some of her, people have seen some of the posts because I love to share them. I think they're very cool. It looks like there'll be a little bit of an audio delay because you're on the other side of the planet, literally. And so we'll just keep that in check. So Tara, what are you going to be bringing to the roundtable tonight?
Thank you, Rita. Yes, hello from Australia. I'm currently in Melbourne in a hotel. So yes, I'm in the middle of traveling at the moment. So basically, I'm a psychic medium, and I'm also a healer and a Sanskrit singer. So what I do is I help especially women, help them to connect to their intuition. And I actually believe we've all got a psychic ability within us. So my main mission in life is to help people to understand how to connect to that intuition. So it's things like trying to understand our senses and what our body is telling us, as well as our mind, what messages perhaps we're getting from our guides, so our angels, because I think this is really important to be connected to as well. So once we have this internal guidance system, it actually helps us to really navigate the world of narcissists. So my job is to help clients to identify them, to have coping strategies, to actually feel into what it's like when someone is giving off bad energy or good energy or anything in between, because as we know with narcissists, they can be wolf in sheep's clothing sometimes with how they present themselves. So that's a little bit about me.
There you go. Perfect. So next in line, it looks like Patty Mason. Now, Patty is, she hooks me up with CBD oil. That's, in my life, one of Patty's big jobs is to keep me hooked up with CBD oil and keep me really educated about the endocannabinoid system, which is super exciting, because the research has been coming out only over the last, handful of years about how our endocannabinoid system works. And so when I've got questions about how that stuff works and, the CBD and even questions about, medical marijuana and how that fits in its place and CBD's place. And the cool bonus is Patty is also a self-defense expert, because of her narcissistic situation. It motivated her to really learn how to empower herself, not just, not only intuitively, not only in managing the emotions, but literally, like, how do you kick somebody's butt, or feel confident enough to do so that people don't hassle you. It's a fun thing, because narcissists a lot of times are bullies. And when you carry this energy with you, that that no matter what happens to you, you're going to be fine physically. You'll know how to handle yourself. What a gift to have that come about. So Patty's going to bring that arm of the equation into it. So what are you going to bring for us this evening, Patty?
Oh my goodness. You said a lot of it already just in the introduction, but that's one of the words that you used is key, and it is confidence. And the biggest thing is it's about figuring it out now, because whether it's in any situation, it's been said already multiple times, you're going to get caught off guard. Is that the moment when you want to figure out how you're going to handle the situation? Confidence comes in being prepared. And that's what I love about what I get to do. And, people think self-defense and CBD are, two totally different things. But what I have the ability to do using both of those tools, and even when they're combined, is empowering people, particularly women, to have a peace of mind. Whether it is a peace of mind to just get through your day when it looks like the world is crashing down, and then you have to go home and there's a toxic person there, and you have to be able to put it all together to just get through the night, or if it's peace of mind to go out and have some fun with your girlfriends and not have to worry about your safety, to be prepared for all that. And confidence is really what it's about. It's building your confidence. And no matter where you're at, you will always be building your confidence.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because we're always facing, if we want to grow and evolve as people, that means we are consistently moving beyond our comfort zone, because that's the only way to do it. And what I found, though, is the best way to move beyond my comfort zone is to hang out with really cool women who, will accept me the way that I am. And that's what we all need, is to start gathering these groups of women together in these communities and tribes, because the worst problem in any sort of abuse, I came from childhood abuse, and in any sort of abuse, the biggest issue are the secrets and the emotional isolation. If when you start reaching out and becoming a part of these groups and talking to these women, getting coaching and help and support, what it means is that you can bring the secret out of the box and you can start that healing process and that transformation process. But that's one of the biggest things, is to start feeling comfortable enough that you can start sharing your story. And that's how we gain our confidence. When we start sharing it and you get the support and the love and the joy, from cool women like you guys, then that's how we start to sort it out. So, okay, so last on our list for this evening is Jane. Jane is my favorite astrologer. Oh my God, it's so hilarious. Every time I see Jane, she's telling me about what's coming up. She's like, hey, this is what's coming up now. And, so I stay on top of all of the, retrogrades and changes in the moons. And, it's awesome, because I wouldn't follow this stuff. It's a little too complicated for my thinking. And so it's awesome. I get Jane to be my astrologer, as well as flower essences, as well as, oh, that's right, codependency. Jane and I have these amazing conversations about codependency and flower essences and astrology, and how they all come together in different times. How you can, check up somebody's astrological sign before you date them, when you first meet them, coworkers, people in the bar, she kind of like finds a way to get their birth date, and then she's checking them out, and she's like, is this someone who will be a good fit for me? Is this someone that I want to move forward with? It's like getting insider information. It's fabulous. So Jane, what are you going to bring to our Zoom conversation this evening?
Hi, everyone. This evening, I would like to be reminding everyone how astrology and flower essences can be so healing in your journey here. The astrology can be healing just for you to understand what your astrology is in your own natal chart. It's also healing for you to understand how the transiting planets are influencing your own chart. It's healing for you to understand the people in your life's chart, to understand their strengths and challenges that they have. One thing I didn't mention in the last time we spoke was one of my most favorite interests of astrology is the astrophotography, how your astrology is influenced by your geography, and how that could influence the type of—
I've never heard about that before. It's so cool. I'd never heard about that.
How that could influence the type of people that you're meeting in those type of areas. And when we're talking about how to avoid being with toxic people, one thing to be aware of is what your astrocartography is, because you may be set up to attract more of that. Whereas if you moved or traveled somewhere else or visited somewhere else, you may have a very different, more fortunate experience. So with regards to astrology, also how it can just be so uplifting on a day when you're having a need to feel even better about yourself, to type in a Google search of a couple astrology aspects that you know that you have. I did it today and I was like, I am amazing. Sun sextile Mars. I feel so great. So doing that just to know yourself better and really have that reinforced of all your strengths. And then with regards with regards to the flower essences, how you can use them to be healing you with your emotions and with your physical issues that you may be having, and then how you can pick certain flower essences for whatever certain emotional issue is arising at the time. And just really how powerful these really are, how they do what they are supposed to do when they are used properly. So just encouraging people how it's out there, and different flower essences that I didn't speak about last time. Like my favorite ones are actually from Australia bush flower healing from Ian White. So I wanted to speak a bit about that.
Cool, very cool. So at the end, I'll make sure that we all tell people where you can find us should they want to, you know, get more help, get coaching or support around what they're doing. So we'll spend a minute or two at the very end making sure that, you know, everybody's information gets out so people can find you, so you're not some really random cool person that they're searching the internet trying to, you know, find you. I've done that before, you know, where I've been like, who was that person? You know, and then you look and you know, and it takes you down a rabbit hole, and 12 hours later you're like, oh, I didn't find him, but I did see this really cool cat video about, you know, some weird random thing. So okay, we are going to start with our questions this evening. And so we'll just start with the first one. How's that? So the first question we've got are practical tools to lower your stress so you respond, not react, when a narcissist gets scary. So who wants to start around that one? Who's got some great tools that lower your stress? So when, you know, let's say you come home, you see that you feel the energy's off, you're feeling threatened, maybe a little in shock, you're walking on eggshells, you don't know if they're going to blow up, or maybe, you know, you check the chart and you see that this is going to be a bad day, you know, this person's going to be scary, you know, or maybe you just know that this is the time of the month that they're going to be worse. My husband keeps an app on his phone that tells him, you know, about my cycle. And it says things like, you know, danger zone when I'm PMSing. It's really, I know. So, however, we are all, you know, biologically pre-programmed either with weather, you know, weather affects people. You know, the astrology affects people, hormones affect people, diet, whether somebody had a bender the night before, all of those things are kind of predictable. So when you know a narcissist is going to be scary and they're starting to get scary, how can you stay grounded so that you respond instead of go back to your normal patterns of some sort of fight or flight? I freeze, I paralyze, you know, and I just take it and I suppress everything until it's done, and then I go find a way to put myself together. That was my old pattern, which if I'm not careful is easy for me to fall back into. So who wants to start with the tools that they use?
I'm happy to go jump in first. It's Shona here. Hi.
Hi.
But I'm really curious, and I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say. Because we'll all build on each other's work and sort of integrate and overlap. So yeah, first of all, I love what you said, Rita, about freeze, because that is the first thing that I really think that it's important to know for anybody, is that, you know, hopefully we've all heard of the fight or flight response, right? Which is that they actually said there's 5 different types of responses, and every personality has its own preference. For example, you said your previous pattern is to freeze. So some people go into battle, so that's the fighting mode, and then other people prefer to withdraw, run away, escape. Then you have the freeze or flop, and then you have the friend. You know, how many of us have tried maybe one, even though we have a preference, but then we try multiple strategies to make things work, to make relationships work. You know, that's who we are. You know, I've done that in my life. if we care about people, we don't always just cut people out of our life. Often we'll try so many different things to make a relationship work. One of the things is that, like after you've tried a million things, it's really something you need to look at, like, what is going on in the relationship. So I'm all for trying things, but however, if you're working with a person who's just completely blank point telling you they're not interested in changing and they will never change, and I've had that said to me, that's really tough, if you're a person who likes to negotiate. So the first thing is the fight, flight, freeze, flop, friend response.
Now, what's friend? I've never heard of friend before.
Yeah, so there's fight, flight, freeze, response. And what I want to say is, first of all, that this is not something that we can turn on. It happens automatically. If you have any level of sensitivity, because you're a human being, and any level of empathy, you may pick things up, right? And so you may, as you say, you may notice you walk in the door, something's wrong, the energy's wrong, or just something you just know that you're aware of it. You have a premonition, or your intuition tells you. So first of all is that. And what I want to say is, very often people will say, I went into this battle sequence and I felt so bad. How could I say that? That just came out of my mouth. Or they'll say, I became so weak or froze in the moment, and I wish I'd said something. Why didn't I say something? Why didn't I, why didn't I come in with a boundary or say something? Or why did I run away? Why did I just want to hide? And I just want to say the very next thing, which is the massive, underrated, highly underrated, overused phrase, but it's so important, is self-compassion. That instant response to shock, trauma, you're caught off guard, or just something catches you off left field. When first of all, you're in fight flight, which means you're not your best self. We're not our best selves. And sometimes we can beat ourselves up. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why didn't I say that? Why did I run away? All these things that we do, right? That internal that inner critic and monologue. And the first thing I want to say is, first of all, so recognize that that's going to happen. Do not beat yourself up about it. And then the third thing I really want to say, so bring in the self-compassion. Like if this happened to a 2-year-old that you adored, would you beat that little 2-year-old girl up? Would you send her off on her way and say, chin up, keep calm and carry on? You wouldn't. You'd be like, you take the time and give that child compassion, whether that's whatever love language it is, it's touch or sound, you'd slow everything down, and you'd really take the time to be present, if you could, in that moment, to be kind and compassionate and caring and soothing, right? We wouldn't come in with a judgment. So that's the third thing I want to say. That's a highly practical tool. And then the last thing I want to say is, because you're in fight and flight and you're not in your best self, you're not going to be able to use this front part of your brain, which is super analytical and witty and clever, and it's got all the strategies. Take yourself out of the situation. Remove yourself out of that highly triggering environment so that you can go and recuperate and rejuvenate, because the science tells us that for a normal baseline trigger, for the run-of-the-mill trigger, someone cuts you off in traffic, or something's not going right with your day. Maybe there's a clash in the signs and the day's not going well and something's happened. Take yourself out of the situation, remove yourself so that you can self-soothe and just come back to your balanced, normal self before you even think of responding, before you act. Just see it as a big stop sign, and be super kind to yourself and give yourself that 2-3 second breathing room, whether you develop that with some mindfulness and meditation. Give yourself the space. The science is 20 minutes for your biology and your chemistry in your brain to come back down to normal, when you're not having that rush of cortisol and adrenaline, pulsing through your system. So those are the couple of things that I just wanted to jump in and share to get us going.
Those are perfect. Thanks, Shona. So who wants to jump in now? Who has some practical tools that when a narcissist is freaking out? Oh, Patty.
Yes.
Hop right on.
So a couple things. When someone first says to me, what are some things that you can do to, lower your stresses so that you can respond? There's a list of 100 self-care things that, we could talk about that are, pretty basic, obvious things. But two things that I want to touch on is, first of all, especially if you know you're going to be potentially walking into a situation, it's all about your mindset. And one of the very first things that I do in every self-defense class is we do I am statements. And we write them out, and then we get up and we stand up and we find our power pose, our superhero power pose. We get into that and, get our rough, mean faces on, and we shout those I am affirmations. And it's funny because it seems funny, but it's powerful because it's building that confidence, and it gets you kind of like pumped up and psyched up. And the comparison that I do is, think about a fighter. Before they get into the ring, what happens? There's 3 weeks of promotion where they're, doing their tough guy kind of thing. And then the day comes and they're in the locker room and their coach is rubbing their shoulders and giving them the, you got this, you're the best, and he's getting them all pumped up. Right. And he's all, and he starts, doing this. And then what does he do? He's got to walk through the long hallway down the aisle to get to the ring. And there's loud music and people screaming, and he's, and you see them, and they got their, their hood down with their towel, and they're all ready. And they do one of these before they get in, and they get in the ring and they're bouncing on their feet. That's all preparation for that moment. And so preparing, so I don't expect people to, like, I don't do that before I walk out the house. So I don't expect anyone else.
Yoga and meditation.
Right. Yeah. And my coach comes, rubs my shoulders.
You got this. We all need somebody like that. We should do that every morning. I do that on my live streams. I tell everybody that they got it. They'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's a great thing.
Absolutely. But you can do it at a little bit of a different level. And that starts out with, this is my I am statements that I use when I need to get into that mindset of, being prepared, of just walking out the door for the day, or, if I know that I'm going to be in a room or potentially confronted by someone who's toxic and a narcissist. And I am strong. I am worthy. I am a warrior. I am an inspiration. I am a friend. And you just yell these, whether you're doing it in your car, sitting in the parking lot before you walk into work, or, you looking in the mirror in your bathroom before you leave, wherever it is, whatever you're doing. These I am affirmations, write them down, look at them every day, read them every day, and yell them out loud. And get loud. Because it's going to get you, especially if you're just about to walk into a situation with someone where prepare yourself for it. Get yourself into that moment and get your mindset, because otherwise, what do? We sit in our car before you go into work going, I don't want to do this. I don't want to deal with this person today. I don't. And you bring yourself down to that level where you have already convinced yourself that you can't handle this and that you're not going to be able to. So give yourself that that push, that mindset of that no matter what you walk into, you can confidently handle it, and excite yourself in that. And the second big tip that I have is about awareness. Being conscious, being aware, being in that moment, being aware of what's happening around you. When it comes to self-defense, that means when I'm standing at my car and I'm at the gas station, that I'm looking around, I'm noticing things. I'm not focused on the pump. I'm not focused on my phone. I'm not focused on my feet. I'm looking around and moving around. Well, we can use that in our lives in general, of just being aware of what's happening around you. Who are the people? Are you know, when somebody walks in the room, do you notice it? Do you sit and stand and walk with your head up? Do you look around? Do you make eye contact? Being aware of your surroundings can really help you be very present and in the moment, so that when that charge comes at you, you're already there. It's not like it's a surprise. You're already there. You've got your mindset. You've got your, awareness. You know what tools are around you, and then you can respond.
That is some great, great advice. Very, very cool.
Thank you.
So who else wants to add something to this question? Anybody? Thanks, Patty. That was awesome. I feel motivated already. And I've been, visualizing what my superhero pose would be and what my cape would look like. Although capes are dangerous to have, but I think I want a cape. And go-go boots. Absolutely. Go-go boots are a must. So, okay, everybody ready to go to the next question? Okay, the next question is words and phrases to use to avoid a verbal attack. Because one of the things that a narcissist will get at you is that verbal attack. And what happens is we go into fight, flight, or freeze. And everybody says, well, you need to set boundaries. Well, you need to, walk away. Well, and that's absolutely, that's the way to handle it, but it's hard. What kind of scripts do you guys use when, you walk in and you're sort of blindsided? Do you have any scripts? I know I have a few that I always use when I don't know what to say, but I need to get out of the situation. What do you guys do?
Hey, Rita, it's Shona here.
Hey.
Hey, so yeah, you're so right. Boundaries can also be so context dependent though, and it can be so dependent on the relationship you have. So what works with one person in one situation is not necessarily going to work for another person in another situation. And that yourself, we modulate how we communicate based on the situation, the energy, the tone of voice, the dynamics, So one day I might need to say to someone, stop, you've crossed the line. And on another day, I might need to say to the person, you know what, after everyone's calmed down and everyone's in that level-headed place and I can have an adult conversation, I might say things, when this happened, this is how I felt. And in future, I'd like to make a simple request that you do this instead. So that really depends on the context and the situation. But I think what's most important around boundaries is developing, it's going to, again, sound very simple. And a lot of these things sound simple, but they're super important. And we can almost gloss over them because they sound so simple. But when we know ourselves and we feel strong and we know our preferences and we know our wants and we know our desires and we're connected to that in a very intimate way. Rita, if someone came up to you and went, you're purple, you're just going to be like, no, and it's not going to bother you, right? It's going to delay you, and that would happen to anyone. So when we know our truth, and when someone comes up to us and says something bizarre and crazy, and it's just like, we don't let that in when we know who we are, when we know what we stand for, our values, our principles, and what we know what our preferences are. So that's a great example. If And again, this takes practice, and I'm going to say we're not going to get it perfect the first time, and that's okay. It can be a messy first time. We can set messy boundaries, and again, not beat ourselves up about it, because unfortunately we don't pop out the womb with the manual on boundaries and communication. So again,
No kidding.
kind to yourself. Like Rita said, get into a community of women or people, human beings who are going to support you and love you and validate you without judgment, where you can practice. You know, sometimes we gear ourselves up and for this big thing when we could be practicing in small ways, like with a cashier or at the post office, you know, small, tiny ways where there's not so much charge around it, where we don't have, it's not so much risk. You know, instead of going into your boss and having a massive discussion about, I deserve a raise, dang it, you know, let's practice around small things like, hey, do you mind putting the window closed, or small, tiny things that we get to build that muscle. And you know what, even tiny things, if you're not used to setting boundaries, that can be freaking scary and terrifying. That's so, you know, my thing is just practice, really know yourself, and realize it's not going to be perfect. So that's
I have a few scripts that because my mind will go blank, you know, when someone randomly attacks me, my mind will just freeze, you know, and I'll be in panic. And so I've trained myself that there are a few things I always say. One is, thank you for telling me how you feel. I really appreciate it. Because many times people are expressing themselves, they're attacking because they've got very poor communication skills about what they're trying to say. And if you at least even look like you're listening to them, that can help. You know, that can help diffuse the situation enough that, you know, you can get out of it and sort of survive it, you know. I like things like, I'm not sure how to respond to that. You know, when someone will say something, Kimberly says that she says, I'm not sure how to respond to that, or the conversation is over, or I'm sorry you feel that way. It's very neutral. It's very one-sided. And that's when someone's being triggered, that's sometimes the best response, because I like to say they're not in their right mind. When someone is triggered, they're in their fight or flight. They are not in their right mind, no matter what you say, no matter how good of an argument, no matter how brilliantly you phrase it, they cannot hear you. They do not know what you're talking about. And so anything that's neutral, like, excuse me, I need to go to the bathroom right now. I've used that one. I've used that one a lot, you know, and then you go to the bathroom and you compose yourself and you do or don't come back. You know, that's totally up to you. Maybe you just keep walking, you know. So I'll use things like, thank you for telling me how you feel. I need to go to the bathroom. Or you've crossed a boundary. I need to remove myself. I don't make it about the other person. I always respond in a way that's just, I need to leave right now. Thank you very much for your time. And then, as Shona said later on, have the conversation of, this was a boundary for mine. From going forward, when you cross this, I'm going to have to leave. You know, I'm going to have to take care of myself. And so I like to have a few things that I can pull out of my pocket when I can't think of anything else. So who else wants to add something?
Yeah, I'll just finish with one more sentence on the boundaries. One of my favorite words to use that comes from Terry Cole is, I'd like to make a simple request. Mm-hmm. One of the best phrases.
Mm-hmm. That is a good phrase. So Tara's on a little bit of an audio lag, so I want to make sure I give you space. Tara, did you have something to add to this?
Yeah, I did actually. It's fantastic what everyone's saying so far. It's really helpful. I feel like I'm writing stuff down for my own mind, you know, for later use. But I'm gathering things here. I just wanted to add with, because you mentioned about these scripts. Now, I also feel that we have non-verbals we can do too. So physical actions that help us to better empower ourselves and take command back in the space, because the narcissist, what they'll try to do is overwhelm us, right? So what I always say is that with a narcissist, they're kind of like a runaway train. Eventually they'll run out of steam when they're emotionally activated. They're going to go and go and go and go on the attack until they run out of steam. So if you're in that freeze mode, it's a good idea just to wait. But if you're finding that it's getting so overwhelming, what I actually teach my clients to do is put your hand up like this, just in front of you, to literally tell them and signal to them that you're about to speak. Then you say one of those brilliant statements that you said, Rita, or Shona said about, you know, I'm not going to engage with that. That's one that I use. I'm not going to engage with that right now. Or as you said, Rita, thank you for telling me how you feel. Or that's your opinion. So you put your hand up. But the trick is, as you're speaking, don't put your hand down until you've finished. Because this is a signal that you are speaking. And even if you're pausing and gathering your thoughts, this hand is the signal to them that you're trying to just create a boundary, but then you don't lower your hand until you finish. And that is really, really powerful, because it gives you that physical connection symbol there so they know that you're still wanting to speak. And sometimes I find it diffuses things a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to add that. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes what I've done is when someone wants to have a difficult conversation and I feel I need to stay there, I'll put something in front of my abdomen. I'll put a pillow, or I'll put my hand there. I'll put something so that energetically for myself, I feel there's more of a barrier. And so I feel more protected because there's something energetically between them and me, and it helps me maintain my composure. I've literally, when people have wanted to express themselves, you know, and really wanted me to hear it, and I wanted to be present for them, but it was freaking me out, I'd put a pillow or something big in front of me. And it makes me feel as if I'm a little more protected from that energy that's coming at me. So Jane, did you have something you wanted to add, or no? And it's okay if you don't.
What I was thinking was, of course, it depends on the individual situation and the individual that you're having the conversation with. But what I've noticed is that if people think that you are trying to change them, then you often will trigger them. And I've found that it's helpful if you're communicating things that you know that they would have a different opinion on, to, in your verbiage, say to them, this is just my opinion. And I understand that you don't have the same opinion, and I'm not trying to make this be your opinion. And when I have done that in the past, it seems like that is really magical, because then they realize, like, oh, I don't need to argue with her, or oh yeah, she understands that I have a different viewpoint. It's being respectful of both. And oftentimes, if we are interacting with someone who is more narcissistic, then we maybe sometimes have more codependent traits. And one of the traits of being codependent is that you are trying to control others. And so it's something for you to keep in mind is, how am I communicating this? How am I trying to control them? How can I not try and control them with my language? And also, I think just saying that, they hear that, and it just sets the tone where there's just more peace. So that's where I've had success emphasizing that this is my opinion. I know you have a different opinion, and I'm not trying to change your mind. Of course, that may only work in certain kind of conversations, but that was a relief when I learned how to incorporate that.
Well, sure. You know, and a lot of people are not diagnosed narcissists, because there's a very specific diagnosis that comes with that. A lot of people, they behave in a narcissistic way because they've got other things going on. And underneath a lot of those behaviors, for many people who are struggling, underneath the narcissistic survival, over-aggressive, expulsive behavior is somebody who doesn't want to be a bully. They don't want to be a victimizer. They don't want to even see themselves that way. Now, that's not true for you know, definitely a percentage, but a lot of times when we come up with toxic people, if we can express ourselves in a neutral but, you know, way to diffuse the situation, like you suggest, Jane, it gets them out of their fight or flight, and it gets them more into a rational state of mind too, so that you might be able to have better communication. Now, I've known a lot of times when it would be wonderful if the other person responded to that, but they didn't respond to it until later on, like a few days later, once their energy started to go down. Then they were able to hear what I had to say, that I wasn't trying to judge them. And then it makes the next conversation go smoother. But usually I have to ride the roller coaster of their energy and emotion until they get back into their rational mind. And then they sort of integrate what you said. And then the next time, it's a little bit, it can be a little bit calmer, because they know you're not trying to attack them. They know you're not trying to make them be somebody that they're not. You're just protecting yourself and setting your boundaries about what's right for you and how you want to engage. So cool stuff. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question, which is, and this has happened. This question comes up a lot. A lot of women want to know how do you find healthy friends? They don't know how to find friends or where to find them, or they're worried that if they meet somebody, that they're going to be a narcissist and they're going to end up in the same trap. They have a hard time trusting and or attracting and or finding people who can be a positive, powerful support system. So where have you guys found healthy friends?
Hiya. Well, first of all, I think, I moved around a lot. I moved from South Africa to the UK, to Scotland, to England, and all around, and traveled. So it's almost like it can be a moving target, but I feel like one of the things that's worked for me is, again, I'm going to come back to it's your relationship with yourself, and if we're worried about having a relationship with friends, whether it's men or women and we're fearing and worried that they're narcissistic, I think, we can't control what's out there in the world, but we can control to a larger extent and degree, who we want to be and who we want to interact with, and what kind of experience we want to have. So, for example, what I work with on myself and my clients is so we could find people locally and online. And part of it is, if we want to have or attract more friends, is that I have to be honest with you. For me, I am in that process because I've recently moved to a new area. So that's a great question. And for me, I have to push myself out of my comfort zone, number one, out of my boundaries, and I've got to make an effort. It's not easy, like being the first one to reach, to ask, to invite. So first of all, it's like, again, it's very practical, but I've got to make an effort, locally and online, and that takes energy. So that's one thing. And then, so I've got to say, like, am I being the type of friend that I would like to attract? So, how am I showing up? What kind of quality am I bringing to the relationship? The third thing I work on is, if I'm really stressed about something, I have key flags that I look out for. So in addition to using my amazing tool, which I really highly recommend to everyone to please go and investigate, EFT if you haven't already, this is a powerful, powerful tool. Not only is it practical, but it really works directly on your nervous system response, and it switches off your fight flight. So, before we were talking about, okay, we all have different responses to stress. This thing can short circuit and circumvent how long it takes for you. For example, Rita, you were saying, I ride the emotional wave of that person, or, okay, we're going to wait 20 minutes to come down to normal balance till we feel balanced. EFT is clinically proven to switch off the fight-flight mechanism. So that's a direct link to help you calm down and come back to normal and balance. So before, for example, I know we were talking about previously, okay, if we were caught off guard, but if you're going into a meeting or a situation where you're afraid or there's fear or you're not sure what's going to happen and you may worry that there may be some narcissists, I use tapping. So it's just basically tapping on acknowledging the fear. And what that does, it's not focusing on the negative and attracting more negative into your life, but it's literally clearing, releasing, healing that layer of trauma and fear from your nervous system and your energy field. And I find when I do that, I'm much more able to be calm, powerful and present and in my body than if I'm like, oh, up there spinning or in stress mode. So EFT is a great tool for that. So, and again, like, you know, I think Rita, you and I were chatting about this last week. You know, we sometimes make a list of our dream man or a dream woman or dream relationship. What about making a dream list of your perfect friend? What type of friends you want to cultivate? You know, is it a one-to-one? Is it a group thing? And then, you know, take the initiative, invite people around to your house, you know, or wherever the local restaurant. And again, it's about taking the action that you can, put it on your vision board, you know, write out a list, be more intentional, ask friends to set you up, you know, ask around, where is a great place to meet friends? Get recommendations. If you know a friend, ask them, hey, I have this crazy hobby. Do you know anyone who might be interested? There's Meetup. Meetup has got great, you know, online groups, and they're free very often, and it's a great idea to meet people. Joining hobby groups. So there really are tons of ideas, and you can brainstorm that. You know, everyone's going to have a different preference. So I'm a big fan of using all the strategies in your disposal.
Cool. Yeah, those are, and you would know because you're really starting to develop that new friends group. So you're in the middle of it. So where else have you guys found healthy people, you know, that you can start making a part of your support group? Anybody? Or are you friendless?
Yeah, I will say that there's so many different like actual places. You know, the first thing I would say is, you know, go to those places where people are doing what you want to do. So Meetup was a really good one to bring up. And Facebook, one of the groups that I had joined a while back was something, the Positive Army, and just every day everyone was posting, you know, all this positive stuff. And so looking for environments where everyone is motivating each other, lifting each other up, positive, happy, enjoying. And so regardless of where you go, the biggest thing that I have found is asking yourself the question, how do I feel after being around that person? You know, if you're around somebody and after 5 minutes or an hour, you're exhausted, overwhelmed, stressed, just, you know, tired, then maybe that's not the right person for you to be around. But if you have people that, you know, lift you up and make you, you know, just love life, and you can't figure out why, I'm around these people and I can't help but be happy. You know, those are the people that you're looking for, the people that you leave and you feel at peace, you feel happy, you feel energized, you feel loved and motivated. That's what you want to look for, is how do you feel after being around those people? And you'll be surprised. I think they're all over the place. Because I think just as narcissists are mixed in everywhere, I think these healthy friends are mixed in everywhere also.
I think a lot of people are worried that they won't be able to identify them, and they'll end up in a friendship with another, you know, it'll end up another one-sided, narcissistic, toxic sort of relationship. I think that's one of the things that people are worried about. So does anybody have any tips on how to, you know, this cool person that's made you feel good, you know, how do you make sure that they aren't just as narcissistic and just as, you know, you're setting yourself up for trouble? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll just jump in there, Rita. I have a couple of questions that I ask myself when I'm meeting new people, and I'm going to write it in the comments here too. So some great questions to ask when you ask yourself when you meet new people. There's 4 simple questions. Are they kind? That's the first one. Are they compassionate? Are they encouraging? And do they allow you to grow and be be yourself? They're the ones that I always start with. And if they're all a no, best to move on from those people. If they're not kind, there's no point. What's the point if they're not kind?
Right.
Because kindness creates growth. Right. Kindness creates connection. If they're not kind, they're not helpful to have in your life. That's my opinion. So, and I'll write that in the comments and stuff too. So I've got it, yeah. That's all I had to add there. Just simple. Yep.
Yeah. Did you have something to add, Jane?
I've just found also that the meetup groups have been helpful for me to meet people, and in particular, the astrology meetup groups. And it hasn't been really that I've been like, oh, I'm looking to have friends and hang out with them and talk to them on the phone. I more just enjoy going to a group and just having a nice acquaintance exchange. So also being in the frame mind of knowing that's very nourishing as well, and can even be a little bit better, because then you're not necessarily going to risk pulling someone in that later you might feel, oh goodness, now I have to really step up some boundaries or things like that. But my best luck has been the different astrology meetup groups, and then just being open to any different type of spiritual group that is catching my eye. And the kind of experiences I have through those groups, to me, is fills the need that I have for friendship, new friendships. So that's what has been helpful for me.
Very, very cool. Yeah, there are a lot. I think all of you are right. There's a lot of people around who are kind. And part of it is learning how to really not only identify, but also bring that kindness out of other people. Like, I struggle sometimes when someone behaves in a very, protective way. It almost brings my bully out a little bit. I have to be a little bit careful when I interact with people. And notice if my own bully's coming up. When you, as Shauna was talking about, at the beginning of this question, when you allow yourself to be in a healthy, compassionate, respectful, good boundary setting space, then the people that are going to hang around and want to get to know you better are people of that same energy. If you are, if you're dealing with a drug addiction and your life is all over the place, the only people who are willing to hang out with you will be other people who are struggling, at that same level, if you're looking for a basic friendship, not like a therapist sort of thing. So if you're looking for a basic friendship, the only people that will want to hang out with somebody whose life is really, really, really messed up is generally somebody else whose life is really messed up. And you kind of keep each other there. When you start to evolve yourself, when you start to speak up for yourself and laugh and open up and be vulnerable, then other people who like that and respect that, they'll want to get to know you better too, because you're coming across as an equal, not as somebody who is in a place of needing so much that the other person will, get protective themselves. So let's see. I do have somebody who wanted to know, because it's just about question time. We won't get through all of these, I think. But somebody wanted to know what to do when you're nervous around all men. They have trouble. And I had a client that came to me with that recently too. She was in a narcissistic marriage for a long time. She's just about ready to leave, and she never wants to have another relationship again, with a man, because she's nervous and anxious, and especially if you have any sort of childhood trauma. I've had to deal with a lot of nervousness around men too, and really sort my way through that. One of the things that I found is there are many kind men out there. And when you start to develop self-esteem around, your communication with them, and that they do exist, you're able to start getting over your anxiety, because we're anxious because the only thing that we know has been this trauma, We don't know that there's other things out there. And when you take small steps, like a mouse coming out of their hole, to say, okay, let's try this one. As you were saying earlier, Shona, just try it at a mini step. How did this work out? Would you mind opening the window? Or would you like to go to lunch with me? Or, whatever that helps you start finding your voice. You will start to gain self-esteem that there are nice people out there and nice men out there that will be there for you. But our own trauma makes us tend to project onto all men, and say, this is going to be a problem. Here's an interesting little research factoid. Women who are who do not have health insurance are more attracted to men who have facial features which reflect a lot of testosterone, meaning that they're looking for a man that will protect them. So so in countries where they don't have that safety support, especially for their children, they'll be attracted to people who are more aggressive. Whereas in countries and cultures where their children are secure, they feel secure with some sort of health insurance or safety net, they're more attracted to men who are softer, having softer features. So the stronger you get, the more pieces you get in there, and the more confident you feel, the more you'll even be attracted to people who are nicer. You'll be able to identify them better, and you won't be like, oh yeah, I want that guy across the room, the one with all the tats and the earring and, and who's yelling at his girlfriend. That's the one that I want. That's him. You start not being attracted to them because you start wanting better for yourself, and you don't end up as nervous, and you get enough experience that you're like, this might work out after all. So it's in tiny little bites, but you can rewire your nervous system through many positive experiences with men. So do you guys have anything to add to that?
Yes, I don't mind. So, that's quite an interesting question, and that I'd be curious to find out more. If I was working with this lady, I'd find out more. So, is it in what context? What is it that makes her nervous? Is it meeting in large groups? Is it having a conversation? So I'm just going to imagine that it's going to be one of those two and answer based on that. So if it's around anxiety around big groups or being in groups, I'd probably just take a friend. There's a massive power in having someone with you, feeling like you've got a buddy, a wingman, a wingwoman in groups. If it's around building, again, I totally agree with you, with Rita, if I were afraid to, have conversations or meet men or build relationships, I'd do the same thing. I'd go small, tiny bites, I'd chat up the barista who is making my Starbucks, or the newspaper.
You're hot. Like you practice pickup lines. Is that what you do?
Yes. Well, yeah, why not? And I think one of the key things again is like, does she feel, like there's tons of books we can read and articles about, how to work a room, for example, if you're nervous in an interaction and with social anxiety, the key there is to be interested in the other person, ask questions. Don't make it all about you, like try and find out more about them. If you're having a buffet, talk about whatever you have in common. But I think what's coming up for me is also what the deeper issue here, we have these tactics and great things, books we can read, how to, win friends and influence people. But what is underlying that is the self-worth. How does she come to that relationship? Does she come with like, oh, I had this trauma, no one's going to want me, what's going through her head? I'd really want to dig in there and find out and work through that and clear that with EFT and coaching. I'd want to find out, what's going on there? Is she feeling no one's going to want me? Are there all sorts of thoughts like, I'm used up, or I have baggage, and that really impacts the relationship and the response she's going to get. Just like you were saying, Rita, if you sense that we sort of feel people out, and each interaction is going to be really different based on what that person brings. So I'd really want to hone in and work with the person a bit more. Yeah.
So Suzanne, who's the one who posted this,
Yeah.
she added a couple things. She said she has trouble trusting and with intimacy because the narcissist is always in her head and she compares all men to him, you know, so it projects onto all men that they're the narcissist and sees them all as monsters. And she doesn't have much energy left because she feels drained. So she's just in this complete nervous system reactionary mode, sort of empty. So what would people like to add to that?
Well, first of all, I just want to say, have some amazing compassion for yourself. You know, that is totally understandable that that's going to be the case. And trust is not something that people can demand. Trust and intimacy is built over a long time. And this really links in with the friendship question. You know, yes, we can make fast friends and fall in love with people immediately. But, you know, sometimes you can have a healthy, slow burn where you really give that person time. Give yourself time, the time that you need. Some people are faster than others, and maybe this lady's pace is going to be slower. You know, so I really would honor that, and I really want her to honor that, honor her own pace, and not be thinking things like, oh, I should be further along, you know, I should be able to be getting over this. So, you know, and really think about investing in some support, you know, and really take the time to build that trust and build that, because ultimately when we trust ourselves, that makes it easier for us to trust other people, including men.
So Tara had some things she wanted to add too. So Tara.
Yep. Yes.
So yes. So what would you like to add to this conversation?
Oh, I just wanted to, I just wrote something there to Suzanne. I'll just read it out. It's about connecting.
She won't see it because you have to put it on Facebook.
Right. Okay. All right. So what I wrote in response to Suzanne, and I'll put it back later in the comments, is just in response to her, it is about connecting back with the person that you are with your friends and your likes, dislikes. Because I often think, and this is for me personally too, if we've had abusive relationships, we've either been sexually objectified in the relationships and only wanted for our bodies and that sexual connection, or we've been completely ignored or rejected by men. Now, these are like a swinging pendulum on opposite scales of the spectrum. What I would encourage Suzanne and everyone listening is to get back to that middle ground of who you are with your friends, because in that comes your likes, dislikes, your intellectual conversations, your emotional connection to the world. So there's so many aspects of who we are, not just because of our body as women, you know, that's interesting. And men really find women interesting when there's that connection. The woman has the connection to themselves. They have a strong life purpose. They're passionate about their life. All of these things are actually that higher level of feminine energy, that it's not necessarily about the sexual energy of the body, but it's more about what's going on in your heart. And so that's what I would encourage, is just to connect back to your heart and see yourself through the eyes of how your good friends see you. So I just wanted to add that little bit there.
That's awesome. And she wanted to make sure that it was normal, that feeling this way, having narcissists exhaust you and not trusting men after trauma is normal.
Cool. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
So Patty or Jane, did you guys want to add something to this?
I wanted to add a couple things. So I would say what I've learned is that after getting out of a relationship with someone who is very narcissistic, it's very healing to take time to heal yourself and work on yourself. And that one of the mistakes that people can make is that they find that they leave one relationship that has just gotten over, that has been unhealthy, that until you work on yourself, you tend to attract similar type of energy. But it can be empowering to be by yourself and to work on yourself and be healing yourself, whatever modalities you find are helpful, and know that you're going to be in a healthier place when you choose to consider being with someone in a relationship. And another thing that is interesting, it's kind of goes along with what Tara is saying about the balance. One of the things that is talked about in Codependence Anonymous is that there should be a minimum of 3 months before you are getting into heavy intimacy, sexual intimacy with a person. And in our culture, the way that things are, it just seems very normal that things just go fast. But if you do go at a pace of 3 months and you make a goal to yourself that I'm going to project myself as the person I really am, and I'm not going to be concerned about if they like me or change myself to the way that to make them like me. If you are using that time to practice being authentic, that is really an amazing opportunity, in my opinion. And I think also some things to consider is when you're putting out those boundaries with those type of people, with the people that you would be interested in, I think you would tend to attract people who would be more worth your time. If they know that things are going to be going slower, they may not be as the narcissist not as invested to stay around and try and have a relationship with you. And also, if you are practicing being authentic with them and being who you really truly are, you'll start to get an idea of if this person really is for me based on how they react. And then you can have an easier way of retreating from the relationship because you haven't gotten so emotionally involved by getting so quick into physical intimacy. Because when the physical intimacy starts, then that is when it can be harder for people who have been in unhealthy relationships to maintain their authenticity and not be so easily influenced by the other person. And my other thought was, anytime when I'm having an emotional issue, one of my favorite things to do is to do the flower essences. So flower essences are extracts of different plants, flowers, herbs that are placed in water, cooked in the sun, and then the product is taken out and put in bottles for our use, for our emotional and physical wellness. My favorite flower essences that I love is Ian White's. Ian White these are flower essences from Australia. With the flower essences, you have the extract bottle. You can do the drops right underneath your tongue. You can put drops in water and drink it. You can put drops in water and spray it over your head. What I love about Ian White's, I also use the Bach flower remedies, but this book here is really amazing. And you can look up here and say, oh, what's the best different options that I could do to take an essence for fear? And like there's, for example, gray spider flower for extreme terror and immobilizing panic. There is Pal Mulla Mulla for those people who fear social interactions or for people pleasers. Or there is the dog rose of wild flowers, fear of losing control, whether it's your temper, rational mind, or experiencing nervous breakdowns or being swept up in hysteria and panic. So what I would do is I would make a remedy that would combine certain elements of those type of things that were speaking to me when I looked at those definitions, and I would be taking that on a consistent basis. And then if I think I was going to be in a situation where that would be arising even more, I would be taking more of that remedy or making a different remedy, a more specialized remedy. But these flower essences have been very helpful to me and many other people. And it's something that not a lot of people know about. So I definitely encourage people to look into it. The Bach flower remedies, you can actually buy them at Whole Foods now, and other remedies are available online. So that's been very helpful for me, and I encourage others to look into it.
Cool. Now, Patty, I know you have an opinion on this because you have been through the ringer in your life. You have seen a lot. So I'd love to hear from you about this question.
Thanks. Yes. And I was thinking through all of the different things, and the first thing that I want to talk about is something that we don't talk about enough when it comes to these experiences, and that is the fact that this is that these interactions are traumatic experiences for us. And we need to acknowledge that, because then we can acknowledge that the body doesn't differentiate traumas. It just knows trauma. So when your heart rate is elevated and you're in that fight or flight, your body isn't saying, oh, well, that's because she's watching a thriller movie on Netflix. No, it's no different than that, the way that the brain is set up and that instinct that there's danger. And what's important to understand about trauma is that has a physical impact on the body, and particularly the brain. And so I believe that, and I had this experience, that one of the key pieces that we're missing in our healing process is physically healing the body from that stress, from that trauma. And that's where the work that I do with CBD and hemp oil and all the other cannabinoids and educating people on this is particularly working with people who have anxiety. And a lot of the people that I work with, it's you can backtrack it to traumatic experiences. And we've all had experiences throughout our life. I personally don't know anyone who hasn't had had things happen to them. I have not met that person yet. So, everyone I know, we've had things happen, and we have to understand that each one of those things has physically had an impact on us. And so we need to get into the brain physically and give it the tools that it needs to heal itself from all of those other experiences. And the flower essences is a part of that can that help do that. Your food, just drinking water, will help the body to heal. When you're drinking enough water every day. I love sharing the therapeutic benefits of CBD because it has so many ways that it impacts the body and the mind, particularly for anyone who is feeling anxious or overwhelmed. Because a part of why we can't handle these situations is because the brain doesn't have enough power to handle the situation. Because not only are you dealing with that trauma and having to deal with that narcissist, but I'm pretty sure you're also drinking water, breathing air, eating food. All of those things are adding toxins to our body. Maybe you've got, stress from money and bills, or, your car broke down, or, you forgot your whatever it is. There's constantly these minor stressors that are adding to it. And for us to be better equipped to handle the bigger stressors, like being in a social setting with all men, we need to be able to make sure that the brain is fed and is clear so that we can have that clarity and we can have that peace. And we can't get it if the brain is all muddled with all of this other stuff. And so that's when you look at what a product like what a compound like CBD does, and it comes in different forms and products, what it's doing is, helping the body so that the body has the ability to give you that peace and calm. That's not an external thing. We have to remember that's something that comes from the body. And when you have a good, healthy brain and a good, healthy body, you can then better function.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of the things I came across the last couple of days was what we tend to do is our brain will lie to us. It will come up with stories to explain why we're feeling the way that we are. And it will come up with whose fault is it? Is it my fault? Is it your fault? We used to play this game as a kid. You know, what did you do to piss dad off? I don't know. What did you do to piss dad off? You know, none of us ever knew. You know, was it because dinner was late? Was it because I was too loud? Was it, you know, what? And what it really is it's our nervous system reacting to something, and it's reacting to, you know, something that we haven't been eating, like enough vegetables. It's responding to the fact that we're dehydrated or that we didn't get enough sleep. It's not only external things which are coming at us. It's about getting our nervous system in a really healthy place so that we don't get triggered. We don't go into our fight or flight. So it's super important it's super important to take care of your physical needs, because that will allow you to trust, to respond, to be resilient, and to stay out of fight or flight. We've had some great additions. Hey, Tara, could you put some of the things that you guys have been putting in the chat room here on the Facebook? That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm doing it as we're doing it. I'm actually already doing it.
Fabulous. I love that. Okay, thank you. So we do have another question, and it was, from Audrey, how do you finally cut the cord? We have separated for 15 months. I'm 54, he's 67, no kids, but my kids love him, spend time with him, and I'm thankful for that. My kids are grown now. I genuinely care for him, miss something from our 13 years together. I don't know. I do know that I can't ever live with him again. I didn't even know what narcissism truly meant until a couple years ago. It was like a slap in the face, like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. So who has got some thoughts on that, on cutting the cord with people that we love, you know, but are making us sick?
Mm-hmm. I'll jump in there, Rita. Oh, sorry, Patty. You want to go first? Okay, I won't be long. So with cutting the cords, I just wanted to give a really practical strategy using archangels. So I always use Archangel Michael. His color is a beautiful royal purple blue kind of color. So it's a really magnetic electric color. So to help to disconnect and remove toxic energies, there's a simple invocation that we use, which is Archangel Michael, Archangel Michael, please cancel, clear, and delete and remove any toxic energies from all my bodies, emotional, subtle, mental, etheric, astral, all of those bodies, because we have many different bodies. So we remove it from all, and then we say, throughout all past lives and forevermore. Because we are multidimensional beings, we've got to remove that trauma from every lifetime. So I just wanted to add that there. So it's just a little quick thing there, but you know, cancel, clear, delete. It's really easy to remember, and it helps remove that from the body.
Well, and the thing to remember, it's taken me a long time to embrace this, to embrace metaphysics. You know, I've always been somebody that if I can't feel it, if I can't smell it, then, you know, then I'm questionable. I don't know. But as science is validating quantum physics and metaphysics and indigenous cultural medicines and rituals that were done, and how we really do, you know, affect things around us by the energies we give off from our heart, from the energy we give off from our thoughts, not just our actions, but when we feel certain ways, it affects the reality around us and actually shapes reality around us. And so it's important to keep in mind the metaphysical aspect of there's a lot we don't know that's affecting things. And even if something is only, you know, a metaphor, because who knows about anything, it's still a metaphor that's working, that's causing you to put different thoughts and energies out there. One of the rules of thumb is if you believe something will work, that's what will make it work. You know, and that's, do the thing that works for you, do the thing that you believe will work, that makes you feel better, because that's that's what your body will respond to. That's what reality will respond to. So you follow the thing that makes you feel centered and grounded, you know, and it can be angels, or for me, it's herbal medicines, you know, like CBD and stuff like that. It's do the thing that you believe works and start trusting that for yourself, and you'll feel it when it's in alignment. So Patty had something to add.
Yeah. So my biggest personal experience with a narcissist was with my now ex-husband, and I had waited a long time to fall in love and get married. And so when I finally did, it was with everything that I had, all of my heart, all of me. And when that person turned out to be a very bad person, and it got to the point that they were physically hurting me. It was really hard, and I know a lot of people don't get this part, but it was still really hard to let go. Now, two things. One was, even though I had left, you know, one, there was a there was a part of me that, you know, well, but there's good things about him. And he had done a very good job of messing with my head in teaching me how to twist things. And so my thoughts were twisted, you know, but this person is a good person, but I love this person. But what about these times? Well, what about these moments? And it was really hard to see through it. And the biggest things for me were my self-worth, first of all. And when I did let go, I probably had the least amount of self-worth that I've had in my life that I can, you know, think of. I was at, you know, my lowest low, but I knew that I was still worth it. I was worth real love, not this kind of love. And so my advice to her is, from my own personal experience, is that's where boundaries come from. Boundaries come from us knowing what we are worth and what's okay and what's not okay. And sticking to those boundaries are going to mean letting go of the person. And in my situation, the defining moment came, and I had already, at this point, I had left, but I was in contact, and I hadn't even filed for divorce yet, which I knew was going to set him off. And so I was being very cautious and how I was going about cutting this relationship off. And I was kind of, you know, I was going along, and I even went to his family's Christmas that year. We went together because that was a part of me trying to keep the peace so that we can get to that place that we could peacefully separate. What I didn't realize at that time is the person that I was dealing with, it was never going, they were never going to allow me to cut that relationship if they had anything to do with it. They were just, he had no intentions of me cutting the relationship. And he was still manipulating me to do that. And he knew that I wanted to end it. He knew I wanted the divorce. And so he knew that if he kept pulling me, that I would come along because I wanted it peacefully. And And there was a conversation one day I'll never forget. And he brought up his counseling that he was going to. And this was court ordered anger management counseling that he had to go to. And he had mentioned it, and something about what he said made me ask him, well, what do you talk about in your sessions? And he goes, well, you know, it's stupid. He says, most of the time, you know, I tell her what I've got going on, or, you know, whatever. It's kind of just a chit chat kind of thing. And if you come up in it, I just, you know, I explain to her what's wrong with you. And right.
Wow.
And so then I asked, I said, well, have you ever talked about, you know, what happened that night when he picked me up and threw me to the ground and sat on top of me and just kept punching me until I was able to fight enough to get away? I asked him, I said, well, do you guys ever talk about that, you know, that night, that experience, the whole reason why you're in counseling? And he says, well, no, there's no reason to talk about it. I did what I had to do to handle you. And those were the words that I will never, ever forget. And they are the words that solidified it for me, that just cut it. This person will never be who you think that they are or were. They really, truly are a bad person. And then he said, without me even prompting it, he goes, and you know I would never do it again because I don't want to go back to jail. Not that it was wrong, not that, and when you understand the mindset of someone like this, in his mind, he was the victim. He never did anything wrong. And you could even say to him, well, if you're going to go to jail, wouldn't that mean that it was wrong? He would then have a conversation with you about how law enforcement has been against him his entire life. He's the victim. What's wrong with me? He said it himself. If I came up in the conversation, he just explained to her what was wrong with me and why I was the problem. And it's acknowledging that reality of who that person really is, and not who I pictured them to be, and not who I envisioned them and created that, who they really were, and the reality of the situation. That in my head, having that conversation of it, that's what made me cut ties, especially, you know, that it was that person. It was the person that I was supposed to be in love with for the rest of my life, the person that I had saved marriage for. It was really hard to let go, but I knew that I had to, because he wasn't going to change. And whatever her, you know, situation and experience was of why she's now at this point, that they're not together anymore and cutting the ties, it's about your self-worth, it's about your value, and it's about keeping yourself safe. It's not okay for somebody to put you in that position where you're not treated the way that you deserve and are worth being treated.
Wow. That was really, really powerful, Patty. That was really powerful, and some fabulous, fabulous advice around that. So we actually are at time. And I'm sitting there thinking we have to do this again, because it's awesome having everybody come together and sharing this wonderful support and intimacy with each other. And so what I'd like is, if before we go, we could all offer like one piece of, last words, as well as how people can find you, if they want to, track you down and get coaching or get support or get, different things that you create or sell. So who would like to start?
I'll start. I'm already unmuted.
Yeah, great.
So my one piece I want to leave you with is, whether it is dealing with a toxic narcissist person in your life currently, or healing from a past experience, it starts with you and your belief in yourself. And just remember these words: I am strong. I am worthy. I am a warrior. I am an inspiration. I am a friend. I am enough. I am loved. I am blessed. I am fabulous. You are worthy. You are worth it. And that it all starts there, because once you know your worth and your value, that's when everything else falls into place. That's when you seek the healing tools. That's when you seek all the other tools and resources that we've been talking about. So that's my one piece, is know your worth. And if you're looking to find me, the best place to find me is Facebook. I can very easily be found on Facebook, whether it is Patty Mason on my personal page, and that's where I share a lot of information on phytocannabinoids and the endocannabinoid system and empowerment and inspiration, and all Rita's videos onto my page. Or you can look for Pepper Spray Patty, which is the name of my self-defense business.
Cool. Thanks, Patty. So who would like to go next? Words of wisdom? Last things to send people off with?
Hi, I'm happy to go ahead. Hi.
Hi.
It's been so fantastic and rich, and I love the conversation and meeting you gorgeous women and talking about all this, because it's so cool. So yeah, my last words, I have a lot to say. So I'm going to say, there is another way, and you absolutely have the power to change this. You absolutely have choice, and you absolutely can find a way to make your life the way you want it to be. And one of the power phrases I love is, I call my power back to me now. That's a fantastic phrase to use. And so if people want to find me, and we can have a chat and a conversation about how I can support you, or just a discussion about what we've been talking about today, to carry on, I'm starting to build my social media presence. So on Facebook, I'm Shona Sharma Success Coach, or shonasharma.com is my website, or YouTube, or via Rita. So any one of those options is good for me.
Perfect. Thanks, Shona.
Thanks, Rita. And it's been such a
who would like to
Thank
go
you.
next? Oh, yeah. No kidding. This has been awesome. Very awesome. So who's next? Bueller?
I can go next.
Oh, perfect. Words of wisdom and how to find you.
Okay, you can find me on Jane Masteller. That's Jane Masteller, Masteller @gmail.com. You can contact me that way. Words of wisdom, I would say that ways to empower yourself is definitely understanding your astrology, understanding the astrology that's going on, understanding the astrology of where you live. And there are things that professional astrologers can guide you with, and there's things that you can learn on your own. It's, of course, preferable if you learn things on your own so you don't have to rely so much on professionals. But on the other hand, you also will greatly benefit from the expertise of a professional as well. So, for example, let's say that you are living in a geographically unfavorable position for you. Maybe it's not the best place for you to be trying to create different relationships. Maybe you are in a position to move someplace different or do some different traveling there to meet different people. Those are the type of advantages that you can have when you understand your astrology better. Also encouraging people to research the flower essences. These are very affordable, safe, effective tools that can help you become aligned with becoming your
Oh, looks like we lost you, Jane.
I'm just coming back, I think.
Oh, there you are. Perfect. There you are.
Okay, so those are flower essences help you become your best possible self. And when people are talking about raising your self-worth and improving your confidence, there are flower essences that help for that. There are flower essences that help decrease fear. These are very gentle, very powerful tools that I encourage you to look more into.
Cool. Thanks, Jane. Okay, Tara.
All right. Well, I just want to say, acknowledge everybody's beautiful energy today. I've learned so much from you all. I'm soaking it up like a sponge. Do you say sponge in America?
Yes.
Okay. I got to remember I speak Australian sometimes. So I just want to finish with a quote. I don't know who wrote this. It just everything everybody was talking about reminded me of this quote. You are worth more than second thoughts or maybes. You are worth more than second thoughts or maybes. So if someone's making you the number one, yeah, it's powerful, hey? Because I really think that a healthy relationship is where two people help one another to become more of themselves, to love themselves more. But where we start with a healthy relationship is within ourselves. So if we're loving ourselves, if we're being the ultimate partner to ourselves, if we ultimately marry ourselves and commit to ourselves long term, then we're actually teaching others how to do that for ourselves when we become in union with someone else. And just a couple of little affirmations, you know, you are love, you are light, and you are peace. And you can radiate that every day. So if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook under Daya, D-A-Y-A, Enlightened, which is ENLIGHT ENED. So if you just type that in, that'll come up. And basically I help people to connect to their intuition and through the power of crystals and angels. I'm a big believer that those metaphysical tools can help us because they're all energy based and we are energy. So, you know, why not? So I hope that helps, guys, and thank you for that. Mwah.
Thanks, Tara.
No worries.
So, and I'm Rita Hickman, and what words of advice do I have? Well, I'm someone who is very much into the body. I'm into feeling good. I'm into pleasure. And so when you feel good, when you're getting your needs met physically, mentally, and emotionally, when you have done that healing work that's taken the electrical charge out of your nervous system so you're not carrying that weight and that burden anymore, when you do things that nourish your soul, that feel good, that physically feel good, soft things or spas or skin on skin, whatever it may be, or a wonderful cup of tea or a beautiful little mug. You know, I've got my mug, my penguin mug. I believe I can fly. I love it. My little penguin with his balloons. When we do things that make us happy, when you plant the flowers where you can see them, you know, when you put your bare feet in the grass and enjoy being around the tree and you hug the tree, when you do those physical things, you are more resilient. You stay out of fight or flight. You stay in your rational mind and you start to heal and evolve and grow. And I love to do things that make me feel good, because the better I feel, then the healthier I am and the more I can be the highest version of myself that I want to be. And if people want to find me, I'd suggest you look for the group that I think most of us, if not all of us, belong to, which is Healthy Mindsets to Cope with Narcissists. So if you look for that on Facebook, This is where we have a lot of these videos. This is where we have inspirational things. I'm really active on it all the time. And so it's a great community to join where you can find, as I said, most of these women are part of the group already. And so you can find them there, or just to feel like you aren't alone anymore, that you get the secrets out of the way. You don't have to hide. You don't have to explain. This is a place where everybody understands the experience that you're having. So you never have to feel alone again. You do not have to go through this alone anymore, ever. Because if it's not us, there are other people who are just as thirsting to be an evolved version of themselves, just like you are. And so you will find them. But this is one of the best spots to find us, is that healthy mindsets to cope with narcissists. So I think that's it. We didn't get all of our 8 questions, but I think we're going to try to find a time where we can come back and address more of these, because this is a really important topic that we get out and about and around. And I can see that Shona's getting a little tired. What time is it there, Shona?
Oh, it's 1:45 in the morning. Night owl.
You are the best.
So are you, Rita. It's such a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for all of you beautiful women for being on here. I'm going to end the Facebook Live and then we'll chat for another second. Okay, stop live stream. Goodbye, everybody on Facebook.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.